بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على أفضل الأنبياء ومرسلين Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Today we're continuing the practical Tawheed series, and I think that I named it this because we're having a lot of discussions about social ills and issues in our community. But I think that what's being missing in the conversation overall is the greatest social ill. What is the greatest social ill that man has ever faced? And this social ill was introduced to the human beings in the time of the people of Nuh alayhi salam. And this social ill destroys nations. And sometimes we get caught up in the social hype, which is true, and which is real social problems of African Americans, unemployment, welfare, fornication, broken homes, single parent homes, and things like that. But it's a social ill that is greater than all of them, that actually all of them branch from. And it's shirk, polytheism, paganism. And it was the greatest social ill that ripped mankind apart during the time of the people of Nuh. And Shaitan spent a lot of time, is very patient to break that hold, to bring that social ill, that innovation into mankind. Why? Because when it's present, there's no limits, because there's no kufr, or there's no sin after that. So once a nation falls into shirk, all the other chains and guards and fences break down, because shirk annihilates the intellect. Paganism annihilates faith. It annihilates shyness. It annihilates people's need to be good, and people's need to establish goodness and characteristics that are beneficial for mankind. So we find all of the social problems with African Americans, it'll go back to them committing shirk. It'll go back to them worshiping other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in abundance. So if you look at any time they want to invade Muslim lands or destroy the Muslims, one of the first things they do is they put different sects and different aqidas and different things into our environment. Can I get some water? They put different things into our into the environment of the Muslims, and it breaks down their social fabric. Different sects and different aqidas and different manahij. So, in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He mentioned shirk as being a ethm, a sin. So we get that too, that shirk is an actual sin. But it's the worst of sins. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He mentions, إن الله لا يغفر أن يشرك به ويغفر ما دون ذلك لمن يشاء ومن يشرك بالله فقد افترى إثما عظيما. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and verily Allah does not forgive that partners is added to Him, but He forgives less than that to whom He wishes from the other sins. And the shahid in this, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمَنْ يُشْرِكْ بِاللَّهِ, whoever add partners to Allah, فَقَدْ افترى إِثْمًا عَظِيمًا, then he has committed a severe sin. Allah called it a ithm. So that's proof that shirk is from the sins. Shirk is from the noob. Okay? But it's the greatest of the noob. But it's the only one that's not forgiven if you die upon it. All other sins, مَا دُونَ ذَلِكَ لِمَنْ يَشَاء, any other act outside of shirk, even if a person dies without making tawbah, there's forgiveness for that person. As long as he was a muwahid, a person upon Tawheed. As long as he's a person upon Tawheed. And I'm only mentioning this because, like I said, we're having a lot of discussions about social ills. But we're forgetting the main social ill of the human being. The main social ill is kufr. Major shirk. This is the social ill. And the proof that it is from the social ills, the Anbiya in the Quran, when they mentioned, they said, وَعْبُدَ اللَّهِ وَأَعْتِعُونَ, worship Allah and obey me. Didn't He mention don't be homosexual? Didn't He mention don't cheat in weight and measurement? Didn't He mention don't be oppressive? So we know that shirk and a person's aqidah being corrupt is part of the social ills. So we have to stop thinking that social ills, that shirk and aqidah doesn't have anything to do with social ills. So that being the case, the opposite is true. That Tawheed has to be the foundation of social rebuilding. But we have to learn how to apply it to our situation. That's the problem. We have to learn, how do we apply Tawheed now to all the social ills that we see. But without understanding that shirk is the cause of the social ills, we're never going to know how to apply Tawheed and fixing the social ill in the begin with. And this is, just wanted to say that in the beginning of this conversation. We have to stop talking about the social ills of black people without mentioning the fact that they're committing shirk. It's as if sometimes we think that the mushrikeen of black people are somehow better than the mushrikeen of somebody else. We have to stop that stuff. They're all mushrikeen. They're all committing shirk. They're all committing kufr. In the same way, to get them off of shirk and kufr is the same way everybody else has to come off of it. If black people want better, and we want better for our people as a tribe, we have to first call them away from the church. We have to first call them away from shirk and kufr. Racial self-esteem, or tribal self-esteem, because I don't like using racial, even though we know that's a terminology. I don't like using it because there's only three races: angels, jinn, and man. Human beings have no races amongst them, they have tribes. So, racial self-esteem or tribal self-esteem can't happen in its totality without first having aqidah, belief self-esteem. If we want our people to have self-esteem, we have to start making them believe that Islam is for them, and when they accept it, they're being chosen by their almighty creator. Give them self-esteem that way. And secondly, that person has to have personal self-esteem. If a person doesn't have personal self-esteem, like you believe you're a Muslim, that's personal self-esteem. I don't care what social status you're in. The poorest person is better than the one who has money if the person who has money is not a Muslim. Plain out and simple. The worst Muslim is better than the best kafir. I don't care if the Muslim barely praying, smoking cigarettes, drinking alcohol. He's better. So, we're going to start by the statement of Sheikh Shah Ismail Abdul Ghani, Ibn Abdul Ghani, rahimahullah ta'ala, one of the Indian scholars. In his book that we've been reading, taking some benefit from, between this book and the notes of Sheikh Muqsim Maluk that I got from my Sheikh when I was in Egypt, we're going back and forth between those notes. Sheikh Abdul Ghani, his book Taqwiyatul Iman, strengthening of faith, will be taken from. This is what this is from. And the Sheikh, in his chapter of his book called Tahdhir min al-Shirk, warning away from shirk, which is the greatest of social ills. He says, قال الله تعالى إن الله لا يغفر أن يشرك به ويغفر ما دون ذلك لمن يشاء ومن يشرك بالله فقد ضل ضلالا بعيدا. And he says, verily, in Surah An-Nisa, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says, verily Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not forgive that partners are made up to him. He does not forgive you believing someone is like him. He does not forgive that you give actions of ibadah that he legislated for himself to other than him. But he does forgive anything less than that. Anything less than that. This also gives you hope that right now, if you're out there doing the wrong thing, living a foul life, that all you have to do is make tawbah, and Allah will forgive you. And Allah will forgive shirk if you don't die on it. If you make tawbah from shirk while you're alive, the proof is us. We converted from Christianity, most of us. We were committing shirk our whole lives. But we said, La ilaha Muhammadur Rasulullah, inshallah, sincerely, and alhamdulillah, we're Muslim. Shirk can be forgiven if you're alive. So, and whoever commits shirk with Allah, then he is far, far astray. So, and the Shaykh goes on and he says, Al-Farqu bayna shirki wa sa'ir al-dhunub. What is the difference between shirk and the rest of the sins? Okay? Now, sin is a social ill. Okay? So shirk is the greatest of the social ills. Not racism, not holding black people down, not oppression of African Americans, which is evil and disgusting. But even worse than that is the oppression of the rights of Allah. It's shirk and disbelief, which our people are immersed in. So the first thing we want to get, this first social ill we want to get our people away from is shirk.
You need anything else?
No, I'm okay. So, اعلم أن هنالك أنواعا من الذنوب وأثام يقترفها الناس إذا جمحت بهم النفوس وغلبهم الهواء. And the Shaykh, he says, no, that there are different types of sins and evil behaviors that the people do, that their souls may call them to, or the desires may overtake them with. فَمِنْهُمْ مَنْ لَا يَمِيزُ بَيْنَ حَلَالِ وَالْحَرَامِ. He said, and some of these people have reached to such a level that they don't even know the difference between halal and haram anymore, good or bad. They don't know. Some sinners have reached a level where they just committing all types of evil acts and it doesn't matter to them anymore. وَيَقْتَرِفُ سُرَقَ وَعَمَلًا مِنْ أَعْمَالِ الْفُسُوقِ. And some of them, they steal and they do different actions of evil. We know that. People steal your shoes at the masjid, rob your crib, sell dope on the block, shootouts, shoot people and things like that, right? People do that. أو يترك الصلاة والصيام, or people, they leave the salah or fasting. Okay? ولا يأتي بما فرض الله عليه من حقوق أهل العيال ويوصل للولدين. And you have the people who, they don't give the rights of the family members, their children. They don't take care of them. They don't look after them. They don't teach them anything. They don't command them with the prayer or with fasting. And some of them you'll find bad behavior towards their parents. وَيَغْلِظُ قَوْلٍ لَهُمَا. And you see them talking harsh to their parents. وَلَكِنْ الَّذِي تَوَرَّتْ لَا فِي الشِّرْكِ قَدْ أَسْرَفَا. But with all of that being said, all those social ills I just mentioned, not praying, not fasting, that's a social ill. Treating parents badly, that's a social ill. With all that being said, selling drugs is a social ill. With all that being said, the worst of the social ills is shirk. As Allah the Shaykh mentioned, he said the one who committed shirk, he's worse. He's committing a greater evil. وَظُلْمْ نَفْسُهُ ظُلْمًا مُبِينًا. And it's an oppression in itself that is the greatest of all oppression. It's clear, it's the greatest and the clearest of oppressions. It's the clearest and the greatest. Why? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who created you and laid down the earth and brought out the sun. You eat his food. You breathe his air. But then you put the crown on somebody else's head. And we're going to mention that. The Shaykh is going to mention that. لِأَنَّهُ قَدْ جَنَى جَنَايَةٍ لَا يَغْفِرُهَا اللَّهُ. Because they have committed an evil crime that's not forgiven by Allah if they die on it. As if, for example, say if you have a pipe that has some rust on it. And you can get the rust cleaner, you can clean it off. Okay, boom. It's back shining again. That's like sins. You washing it off is like making tawbah from that sin. Or a person may enter the hellfire, may Allah forbid, and the rust is burned away by the fire. Okay, sins are either cleaned away by tawbah or burned away by the fire. But shirk, on the other hand, it's like a pipe that's rusted all the way through. No matter how much you scrape, it's rusted all the way through. You can't even use the pipe anymore. And guess what? When you go to the hellfire does not burn shirk away. That pipe is done. It's thrown away. That's what shirk does. It rusts. It makes your whole iman turns to rust, and nothing can clean it except you're alive and make tawbah. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cleans you from shirk if you're alive. But if you die on it, you're just like that rusty pipe all the way through. Nothing can fix that pipe. So, he said, أما الذنوب وآثام الأخرى فربما يغفر الله يتجاوز عنها لكن الشرك لابد أن يوفي حسابه. And he says, but as for the other types of sins, the other social ills, the other crimes, maybe Allah will forgive the person and overlook it because it's not shirk. He said, but shirk, it has to be reckoned with. It has to be. There's no way around you being reckoned with shirk. Fornication, Allah may not reckon you for it. Not telling you go do it. But the point I'm making is that a person can rob a bank, fornicate, kill people, murder people, sell dope, do all of that, and die without making tawbah. But it's possible, because of his iman and what he believed in Tawheed, that Allah may overlook all of that. And he may not be brought to account for it. But he may. It's up to the will of Allah. From our Aqidah, that the sinning Muslim, if he dies without making tawbah, he's under the will of Allah. That's the Aqidah of Ahlul Sunnah. But the mushrik, the one who dies committing shirk, major kufr, it has to be reckoned. There's no if Allah, it has to be brought to account. It has to be. So why? One of the things about shirk is that it's one of the greatest of oppressions, because it's putting something in its wrong place. So shirk, you're giving rights and you're giving actions and you're giving a belief system to creation that doesn't belong to it. The belief system that you're giving is that you're believing that someone is divine in nature, divine qualities, without blemish or imperfections. And you're giving these attributes and these qualities in the wrong place to creation that doesn't even possess them in any way, shape, form, or fashion. And then you're giving actions that Allah has legislated for you to do for him because of those rights that he has, or those attributes that he has, that divinity that he has, that gives him the right for these actions to be done for him. You're giving those actions to other than him. All of this is the greatest of oppression, because it's putting something in the wrong place. As a Luqman, he said in Surah Luqman, verse 13, where he said, إذ قال لقمان لابنه هو يعظه يا بني لا تشرك بالله إن الشرك لظلم عظيم. And he says, when he said to his son, Luqman said to his son, and he was giving him a warning and an admonition. He said, "Oh my son, oh my dear son, do not commit partners with Allah. For verily shirk is the greatest of oppressions." Shirk is the greatest of oppressions, y'all. Not white oppression of black people, even though it's oppressive. Okay? Not slavery. Not Jim Crow laws. Not because of the prison system and the justice system that is oppressing black people. Yes, that's true. It's very evil and disgusting, and they will be held accountable for that on the day of judgment. But that is not the worst oppression on the earth. The greatest crime committed on the earth right now and every time and place is those who worship other than Allah. They are the greatest criminals on earth. And it is the greatest social ill on earth, without a shadow of a doubt. And we forget that. And you can tell that we have not reached that level, because if I mention homosexuality and I mention that somebody is a lesbian or homosexual act in the street, our faces turn up. I can't believe that. But if I mention that Allah, somebody has to say Allah has a son, we'll say stuff, may Allah guide them. We won't even get any type of anger towards it. We walk past the church and a synagogue, nothing happens in our chest. Because we have gotten this principle that the greatest social ill in our communities is sitting right there in the church. The greatest social in our communities is sitting right there in the Hebrew Israelite temple. Without a shadow of a doubt. Not the liquor store, not the gun shop, not the drug dealer, even though they're part of the problem and they are part of the social ills of our community that needs to be eradicated. But the first thing that needs to be eradicated is the shirk and the kufr that exist amongst our people. Because shirk and kufr brings about the rest of the social ills. And then from that, shirk and the sins together bring about the punishment of Allah and the anger of Allah. And we find ourselves underneath the anger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because one of the things we keep missing is we keep trying to clean our people up without cleaning our people up. How you clean somebody up and he's a mushrik? He hates Allah, he hates the messenger of Allah, he hates the Quran, and even if he doesn't, he's ignorant of it. And he doesn't implement it. Okay? You're trying to clean up people up who don't know how to even be human beings. Because to be a human being, you have to be a human being according to what Quran and Sunnah says is a human being. So where do we start from? Do we start now dealing with even though we have to do it all at the same time. But let's not forget the greatest social ill, which is shirk. So Luqman, who had this great wisdom that Allah gave him, he says, وَخَصَّهُ بِهَا إِلَى أَنْ أَفْشَحَ الظُّلْمَ أَوْ أَنْ يَجُودَ إِنسَانَ عَلَى أَحَدٍ بِحَقِّ غَيْرِ. He said one of the greatest and the most disgusting and vile acts that a person can do is that you praise somebody else, or you glorify someone else, or you give praise to someone else for the right of someone else. If we did that to another human being, how would we react? If somebody, you went to college, you graduated, you did all of this stuff, then you grew up in a pretty nice environment, and you panicked, your mother and father took care of you, but then you turned around and thanked somebody else other than your parents. How would that look? فَمَنْ أَعْطَى حَقَّ اللَّهِ لِأَحَدٍ خَلْقُهُ فَقَدْ عَمَدَ إِلَى حَقِّ الْأَكْبَرُ الْكَبِيرِ. He said, so just like the one who would give the right of Allah to someone, he has committed one of the greatest. This is the greatest of all rights, but you give it to someone else. For example, كان رجل وضع تاج الملك على المفارق الإسكاف. For example, you got somebody, he takes the crown of a king, or the dominion of a king, his crown, and you place it on the head of a shoemaker or a pauper, a poor person or a shoemaker or something like that. I mean, how would that king react? How would that king react? He would react very violently, probably put you in prison or beat you, or worse, death. So what evil is greater than that evil or that oppression? Just think about it. And he goes on, لِيَعْلَمَ الْيَقِينَ أَنَّ كُلِّ مَخْلُوقٍ كَبِيرٍ كَانَ أَوْ صَغِيرًا هُوَ أَضَلُّ مِنْ إِسْكَافٍ أَمَّا عُظْمَةَ اللَّهِ جَلَالُهُ. He says, know without a shadow of a doubt that all of creation, whether it's big or small, rich or poor, great or not great, little, that he's from those who are from the paupers and the shoemakers. When you talk about Allah, everybody on earth, Trump, the king of Saudi Arabia, me, you, everybody's from the Mafaraqa Iskaf. Everybody's from the pauper and the shoemakers. Everybody. So how can now you give that right to somebody who's a shoemaker and a pauper to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? As the Sufis do at the graves. As the Shiite do to their imams. That's a shoemaker to Allah. That's a pauper. But yet and still, you wouldn't do that to a king or a president, but you do it to Allah. Look how this social ill. First of all, one of the things about shirk, look what it does to the intellect of the human being. And from the intellect being destroyed by shirk, everything else is fair game. Alcohol, fornication, murder, dope dealing, shootouts. You know what I'm saying? Disrespecting your women, abuse, all of that. I mean, after your akal is gone, your intellect is gone. What else after that? So then, وقد دلت آية شاهد به الشرع والعقل السليم أن الشرك أقبح العيوب ما زال الناس يعتبرون إساءة الأدب مع كبرائهم وساداتهم أكبر العيب أعظم خرق. He says, was clearly seen, whether it's in the legislation, whether it's intellect that is salim, hasn't been broken down, hasn't been destroyed, the intelligence that is not corrupted, that shirk is the greatest of social ills. Why? Because people to this day, right now, no matter how bad America is, how crazy some of these cities are, it's still strange to watch a child disrespect an elder. It's still seen as something that's like, Dad, that kid don't have no home training. We still don't like it. No matter how bad we may get, that's still weird to see a child talk back to an adult and disrespect them on a certain level. We don't like it. It's something unnatural about it. Even though it's getting worse and worse, we still hold that belief. All right? فَلَمَّا كَانَ تَبَارَكَ وَتَعَالَى أَكْبَرَ مِنْ كُلِّ كَبِيرٍ. Right? كان إساءة الأدب إليه إشراك معه عيبا ليس فوقه عيب. He said, And the fact that Allah is the greatest of all, right? He's greater than our elders and greater than our elder. Then to have bad mannerisms with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is making shirk with him, is the greatest of all aibs. There's no social ill or no vile act greater than that. We have to understand that. There's no greater evil other than that. And no breach of character, or no breach of societal norm is greater than breaking that kharq than shirk. So why do we skip over when we talk about social ills? It's as if that's not the source of all our problems. That is the source of it. Even you're talking about white oppression, what whites have done to blacks in America. They did it if they were righteous, upstanding monotheists. Believing in Allah, would they have committed those atrocities? No, they would have had the Quran and Sunnah and righteousness and the legislation. So the fact that they didn't have that, they went along and oppressed others because they were already committing the greatest of oppressions, and the greatest of social ills that was amongst them was saying that Allah had a son and saying that Allah was three. So that directly affected their acts and their behavior towards other human beings. So let's not overlook that. That is the social problem. That is the social ill. So all of the legislations agree of preventing shirk. وأمر بالتوحيد وهو صراط المستقيم وطريق النجاح. And all other paths, subul, فهي طريق الدلال, طرق الدلال. Plain and simple. Assalamu salam wa barakatuh. وما أرسلنا من قبلك من رسول إلا نوحي إليه أنه لا إله إلا أنا فاعبدون. And the point I'm trying to make here is this. It's a reason why Allah always commanded with Tawheed and forbid shirk. Because if people realize Tawheed in the way that it should be realized and implement the way to be implemented, it'll be justice in the earth. Because the first type of justice is the justice with Allah. And if the European, as people want to use them, if the European would have had Tawheed and the Sunnah, and they were sincere, that's what I'm saying. That's the point I'm making. So the issue is that if the European had that, he would not have committed the atrocities that he committed against the Indians, against the blacks, and he still wouldn't have the system today that he has that is annihilating people. Would he? He would not. Because he would have the Sharia. He would be just. But the fact that he doesn't have that causes him to commit acts of atrocities he's not held back from. And that is the greatest of social ills, because it causes every other social ill imaginable. And until we realize that, until we deal with that and start realizing that that is the sole problem, we're going to keep on putting a Band-Aid on a stab wound. We keep on believing that let's go deal with the African American problems without dealing with the source problem, which is they're committing shirk and kufr on a regular basis that is causing them to continue the cycle of social ills because they have nothing to break them from it. And they continue to be oppressed by people who are committing shirk and kufr. That the reality is that there's spiritual death amongst both groups. And as long as that is present, there's nothing to unite them. We have to get rid of the major social ill that is blocking them from being united, which is shirk and kufr. You clean that social ill up, they'll start to unite. As Malcolm X said, you want to end racism. You want people to be unified? Then teach them correct Tawheed. Teach them Islam. And that will clear up a lot of the issues. I'm not saying that all of it will go, because the Prophet couldn't get rid of racism in his time. But that wasn't what he was sent to get rid of. But slowly that stuff will start to diminish and leave. So the next part of it is Being that now we understand that. Okay? We understand that what is the greatest of all social ills. It's not white oppression. It's not slavery. It's not Jim Crow laws. It's not any of that. Even though we're going to speak about that, even though these are great oppressions, we're not putting them to the side. But I want everybody to realize they exist because injustice exists. And the first case of injustice is shirk. Once a society falls into that, there's no injustice they won't do. So we have to clean those injustices up. The same for the Muslim countries. You find Muslim countries where the Sunnah and Tawheed is not established and being sincerely established as it should, you're going to find oppression. You're going to find it. So until we realize what oppression is and what causes it, we're going to keep on running around in a circle like this. So, so he says, what is kufr? What is disbelief? We're talking about major disbelief here, right? Two types, major and minor. It is of two types, major and minor. Major disbelief is to disbelieve in the message of the prophets and messengers. That's what disbelief is. Major disbelief, in a nutshell, is more to than that. We're just bringing practical usage. It's to disbelieve in the Aqidah, the message of the messengers. Whoever does not accept the Aqidah and the message of the messengers, he's upon kufr. Simple. I mean, not saying that, well, that was just, I don't know if they could. No. Christians, Jews, Buddhists, all of them, they all fit this description. None of them believe in the message of the messengers. So it makes them from the kuffar. It's a simple arithmetic. And what they call to from Tawheed, this removes one from the religion. Minor disbelief is what the text called kufr, which does not remove one from the religion, like fighting the Muslims, swearing by other than Allah, etc. Okay? Minor kufr. And usually minor kufr is because it resembles the acts of a kafir without the belief of a kafir, if that makes sense. It resembles the act of a disbeliever without the actual belief intent of a disbeliever. Okay. Shirk al-asghar, minor disbelief, is what the text labels shirk, right? All right? Or shirk al-asghar, excuse me. What the shirk, minor shirk, is what the text labels shirk, but it does not cause one to be removed from the religion, but it decreases his iman, and this individual does not remain in the fire forever. That's the hukum. Let's give a clear example of how this will make sense. You have the difference between the two is the matter of the belief in the heart when the action is being done, like showing off, for example. A person may beautify his prayer or give charity for the purpose of impressing someone in the worldly life, to gain something from this world. But his belief at the time is not that the person or thing that he is showing off for has the ability of lordship. You know, he doesn't believe that he's purely divine in actions. He doesn't believe that he has divine abilities without limitation or deficiencies. Okay, for example, if a person walks past you in a masjid, brother, you know him, but he has a daughter, you want to marry his daughter. So you beautify your Quran so he can notice you, then maybe he'll get in his mind and marry you to his folks. All right, you show off at that point. Now, do you believe that brother is a deity? Or that now he's going to reward you in the unseen, that he has the way to get you to Jannah, he's going to save you from the hellfire just because he recognized you in the knowledge of reading of the Quran? No. But if you read the Quran and you want that same from Allah, then that will be worship. Because it's different now. How's Allah going to reward you? Allah is going to give you the Jannah and save you from the hellfire. It's different. The belief system that you had at the time, is even though the act looks the same, but the core of the act, what's inside of the act itself, the belief is not the same. So this is why minor shirk doesn't remove you from the religion, because it doesn't take on the qualities of major shirk that will overtake you and take you to another place across the other side of the fence. Okay? It's like such as creating, controlling, and changing the affairs of the unseen and unperceivable manners, or the affairs of the seen that we perceive with our senses, like the laws of creation. That limits the ability of creation, that this person goes beyond these limits to harm or benefit him. So in this case, his actions at this time resembles the action of the mushrikeen that they do for their false tawheed. The belief of the mushrikeen at that time of their action, which is that they give their false tawheed the ability that resemble the abilities of Allah and his lordship. And this is the difference between major shirk and minor shirk. The difference is the belief in the heart at the time the act is done. For example, somebody may swear by Allah, like in Egypt, they say one Nabi. They swear by the Prophet, but it's still shirk because the text call it that. But why is it major shirk automatically? Because they saying it as it's a part of their culture to get you to pay attention. Like you're having a conversation and they want you to listen to him. He said, "One Nabi." So you can stop what you're doing and look up and hear what he's about to say. They don't believe the Prophet possesses divinity. But it's still shirk. Why? Because it's outside candy shell, which isn't candy because it's disgusting. It's outside shell. Okay, looks like shirk. Looks like an M&M, but inside it's not. Inside is something else. Okay, that's the basic understanding of that. For example, swearing by other than Allah. As the Prophet said, he who swears by other than Allah verily has committed shirk. So we know by swearing by Allah is always shirk. Swearing by other than Allah is always shirk. Always. But it can be major or minor depending on the belief. This shirk mentioned in this hadith could be major shirk or minor shirk, depending on what the heart believes at the time when it was said, such as the people during the time of the Prophet ﷺ when they entered into Islam. Some of the people continued to swear by Manat, Uzza, wa Alat, but without the belief that they possessed any type of lordship, whether from habit or custom. So the messenger taught them a supplication to say when they fell into this mistake. Because if swearing by other than Allah was major shirk in every situation, they would have left Islam and it wouldn't have been teaching them no dua. They would have been apostates. And there's rulings for apostates. But the Prophet didn't apply these rulings to them. So that shows us in this narration that every time somebody swears by other than Allah doesn't mean that it's major shirk. It depends on what the belief. The reason that it is labeled shirk is because the text of Quran and Sunnah labeled it shirk, but the difference must be plainly distinguished. So inshallah ta'ala, we're going to stop there. But I just wanted to touch on the fact, what is the greatest of social ills? And if we want to clean up the social ills of our people, we got to start at the source root of it. We got to kill the root. At the same time, we're going to discuss the other issues too. Okay, the messengers made it clear. They said, "Wa'budu Allah wa ati'un." They said, "Worship Allah and obey me." Then he mentioned socials of his people, whether that messenger was. So we know that we can do all this stuff together. But we cannot overlook the greatest of all the social ills that exist. It is shirk. It is what is causing the corruption in the earth. It is what's causing the oppression of our people. Because the people who are oppressing us, those people in power who's oppressing us, shirk is what's causing them to be oppressive. So let's start dealing with the source disease. And inshallah, we will see justice return to the earth. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.